Hi, we're glad you're back. We want to talk more about the pleasure trap and how not to fall into it. That's the main thing.
Yeah. So what we talked about last week was how there is this system in the body to create dopamine when we eat certain foods. And that was part of the design that helped us evolve and make sure that we get enough energy and enough nutrients to survive. So it's a good thing. But in today's world, with so many foods altered, we overstimulate that system and start to use the food for things it wasn't designed for.
And we need to pay particular attention to processed foods and drive-through foods because they're the ones that have the salt, oil, and sugar amped up, which amps up the pleasure response.
Yeah, and when we get accustomed to these foods, then actually it's what they say a lot about drug users. You know, they have to keep increasing the amount they're using in order to get the same level of satisfaction. That's true with the food as well. So we use that analogy that it's really kind of hard to learn to ride a bike if every time you fall off the bike, you have an orgasm. It's kind of like this, kind of hard to find our way to really healthy food. If every time we eat unhealthy food, it feels great. We get this dopamine rush. So we found a couple of things that seem to really help people circumvent that whole process. And the first is to understand what we talked about in the blog last week, how we have patterns that we developed over time to try and make us feel safe about where we are in life. Like for me, I have a real perfectionist tendency and never like to make a mistake. So I go through life kind of the radar's on. If I made a mistake, could I make a mistake? And if it looks like I've made a mistake, I'm scrambling to try and make things right again. I'm agitated, but that whole thing, this idea I have, this belief that I can't make a mistake or else, it's like, or else what? What happens? Well, I feel embarrassment, I feel shame, but that really doesn't hurt me. So what we talked about last week is how, as we become aware of these needs that we put in place to have a sense of well-being, they're like our teddy bears. They aren't really the source of our well-being. But until we recognize that and see through the belief for what it is, it's just a thought. If I make a mistake, I don't die. It's not the end of the world, but the feelings that come up almost make it feel that way. And when these feelings come up, it's quite natural for the mind to say, I know a way out. Remember that ice cream? How good I felt? And we start using food to try and give us a short-term benefit, is to help us to feel better. But that's, of course, just a Band-Aid.
Yeah. What we begin to notice as we eat with more presence, which we'll give you an exercise in a minute, is all the thinking that we have about food or around food. And that it isn't the food so much as the thinking, the thoughts we have about it. And as we see through that, we naturally listen and want what's going to support health and well-being.
Yeah, I like what you say about that, because it reminds me about how when I'm thinking about food, what I'm thinking about is what food is going to make me feel good, give me a sense of well-being. And that, of course, is the way it's supposed to be designed. But when I've kind of overstimulated my dopamine system, then what makes me feel good are the foods that aren't so healthy. So there's a couple of things that we found really help people circumvent that whole system. One is to understand the nature of the mind and how it's trying to help us feel good, but will often lead to short-term benefits instead of really resolving the underlying situation, which is really, if I make a mistake, I'm still okay.
Yeah, and what the mind does often is just have us go for a solution to memory. So that can be an old habit. Has nothing to do with the present moment, has nothing to do with what really allows the body to thrive.
Right. And so what we've found is understanding this nature of mind helps us to not get agitated or anxious or feel shame and embarrassment, whatever that trigger is. And so then we're not reaching for food because we're stable through those old situations where we used to get anxious.
Yeah, and we begin to see that it's okay to have those feelings, that those feelings aren't going to destroy us as we believe they may.
Yeah, and the other thing that we find really helps is to, when we eat 100% whole food plant-based, our dopamine stimulus system starts to become more sensitive because it's not getting overstimulated with the high salt, oil, and sugar foods. And so suddenly carrots taste really sweet and really satisfying. It's so interesting.
Yeah, your taste buds change, that's for sure. When you
Right.
begin to eat whole food plant-based, the body is so appreciative of everything we give it that allows it to thrive. And I believe we're intended to eat whole food plant-based. That's how we evolved. And that's where our greatest health levels and clarity and vitality come from.
Certainly been our experience, hasn't it? Yeah. So we've been over this before, but we'll share it again. If we find ourselves reaching for food when we're not hungry and we're aware of it, then we suggest pause.
Yeah, just sit for a moment, get quiet, let this crazy active mind settle down.
The snow globe, let the
Yeah.
snow globe settle down.
And you can use this exercise too. It's really fun to do and very informative. So if you feel you want something, you know it's not great. And what I do, first of all, is check in. And if you decide to eat it anyway, you'll probably have a glass of water or something like that. But you decide, no, I'm going to have this. Then with the first bite and every bite after that, put all your awareness in your mouth. Taste it, feel it, smell it, and chew, chew, chew until it becomes liquid. During that process, feel love from your heart for it. And then the most important element is when you swallow each bite, notice how your body receives it. Because the body is infinitely intelligent and it will tell us exactly what to do, how much to eat, what to eat, and how often. If we reconnect with what was always there as a little kid and what we often followed as children.
Yeah, so eat that whole food plant-based diet and really see if your tastes don't start to change and you find a lot of more satisfaction in the foods that come packaged the way nature packaged them, whole foods,
Yeah.
the diet we were intended to eat with. And if you do find yourself falling off the bike and looking for where am I going to get my dopamine hit? Where am I going to get some pleasure to help settle my mind and feel better? Try that eating with presence exercise. Let us know what you think.
The recipe today is this wonderful oil-free salad dressing. Try it out. It's really good and it'll make you feel great.
Okay, we'll see you again next week. Bye for now.